Krishna Krishna Hare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatadishatharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha, Radha Radha, Radha Radha, Jaya Radha, Krishna Krishna Radhe, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Sadgurudev Maharaj, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Introduction prayer, page 1. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadadi Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vrindeshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpat arubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Shalina Mataji, please read first.
Hare Krishna. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunatha Dasa and Raghunatha Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates Sri Lalita and Vishaka. O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhara, Sri Vasa, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shalina Mataji. Okay, so now we finished chapter 4 last week. We're on chapter 5 now, but before we proceed with chapter 5, we'll just have discussion on chapter 4 like we usually do at the end of each chapter, right? Before I start class today, I just want to share with you all that I lost my uncle on Thursday morning, on the morning of Ram Navami. This is my dad's brother. And today was a funeral, so please bear with me. I'm feeling a little bit tired today. It's been a long day. Uncle of Veronica Mataji as well. Veronica Mataji is actually my father's brother's daughter. So we share an uncle. Yeah, so this is, the realization that I had today was that, we shouldn't take life for granted. And it's just human nature to, because we are so covered by material nature, so covered by illusion, so materially contaminated, that sometimes, unknowingly, we just take it for granted that our family, friends, and relatives will be around for a long time, even though they may be, quite mature in age in material terms, like older people. And suddenly, when they pass on, reality kicks in. And then all this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita comes rolling down. And then we realize this is what Krishna has been teaching us, that the body dies and the soul transmigrates. But only when it knocks, when death comes knocking at the door to someone close to your heart or close to home, only then I feel that us human beings really take this knowledge into account and really realize the reality, the harsh reality. And I feel that, that we are all very fortunate in that we are taking each other's association on a Sunday afternoon and reading Srila Prabhupada's purports and this Bhagavad Gita, because the more frequently we do this, the easier our journey becomes in this body. And the easier it becomes for us to, or rather the more knowledge we will have, which will actually be to our advantage when that horrible day comes when we lose a dear one. As I said previously, it's not that we can't mourn the death of our loved ones, because we can. We are humans, and it's natural, because we'll miss their association. But the difference between a devotee and one who is not a devotee, in other words, one who does not have this knowledge of scriptural knowledge, is that the devotee mourns with understanding, right? And this understanding is very, very important to have, because it's an eye-opener. And we need to understand that we ourselves are going to be in that position. We ourselves are going to quit these bodies. And when that time comes, are we going to be ready for it, is the question. That's what Bhagavad Gita does for us, prepares us. It prepares us for that final day. And it's a tool whereby Krishna is giving us all this knowledge to escape this pain and suffering of separation from each other, the pain and suffering of living in material bodies, the pain and suffering of birth, and the pain and suffering of death. Gives us all the knowledge and all the tools in Bhagavad Gita. So we need to take this into our hearts and apply it to our lives. Okay, so we've been discussing for all these chapters from chapter 1 through to chapter 4. We've already seen that Krishna has spoken extensively about the difference between the body and the soul, the eternity of the soul, and that the body is material. He's spoken extensively about devotional service and how we should become Krishna conscious, God conscious. And the reason he's been telling us that is so that we grow attached to him and we detach materially. So the more materially detached we are, the more we are engaged in devotional service, the more transcendental knowledge we will gain. And with the more transcendental knowledge that we have, easier our journey becomes. And it will be easier for us to face that final day, be it of a loved one or ours. But it's going to come at some point, so we need to be ready. It's teachings of Bhagavad Gita. It's a reality. It's a science. Bhagavad Gita is not religion. It's the science of the soul. That's what it is. The science. It's a science. And it's meant for every living entity, for every human being. No matter what your race, caste, or creed is, it's meant for everybody. Because every person has a soul within him. And the Bhagavad Gita discusses about the soul. So therefore it is a science. Okay, so let us start with chapter 4 summary. Let's discuss chapter 4. So I was reflecting when I started to prepare today's class. Sometime last week, I was just reflecting on how nicely Krishna takes us through Bhagavad Gita. So I just jotted out a few points. And Krishna so nicely starts revealing this transcendental knowledge in chapter, right? And you'll find that this knowledge that he reveals in chapter 4, from here on, it just progresses and progresses deeper and deeper and deeper. And what is Krishna doing in that process? He's preparing Arjuna, because he's speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. He's preparing Arjuna, in other words, he's preparing us to receive more knowledge and more techniques in how to reach him. And then he takes us up to a point in chapter 11 where he reveals his universal form. He reveals his universal form to Arjuna, in other words, for our purpose. And I'd like to quote, because I happened to be reading chapter 11 at that point, and I thought I would like to share it with you all today. In chapter 11, verse 37, right, Arjuna, after having seen this universal form, this big gigantic form of Krishna, right, after seeing that form, Arjuna becomes very afraid, and then he starts praying to Krishna. And I came across this verse number 37, where Arjuna is saying, "O great one, greater even than Brahma, you are the original creator. Why then should they not offer their respectful obeisances unto you? O limitless one, God of gods, refuge of the universe. You are the invincible source, cause of all causes, transcendental to this material manifestation." So you see, Arjuna has reached that stage of realization of Krishna's supreme position. He was praying as such. So you see how interestingly he says here, Arjuna says to Krishna, addresses him and says to him that why should they not offer their respectful obeisances unto you? Whom is he referring to? The actual engineer of this universe, Lord Brahma himself. Remember, we said and discussed that there are 3 Vishnus, and the one Vishnu that enters into each universe, into each of those little bubbles. He settles at the bottom in the casual ocean, and from his navel extends a lotus stem. And on top of that lotus stem is born Brahma. And the Brahma in charge of this material universe and of this earthly planet, He has 4 heads. He's referred to as Chatur Mukh Brahma. That means 4-faced Brahma. Right? So we look to Brahma as the creator or the engineer of this universe. And yes, he is. But he acted under the direction of the Lord himself. So being in such a supreme position, Brahma, being the father of our creation, even he is offering respects and obeisance to Krishna. This is what's pointed out here. Right? And then in verse 38, Arjuna goes on to say, you are the original personality of Godhead, the oldest, the ultimate sanctuary of this manifested cosmic world. You are the knower of everything, and you are all that is knowable. You are the supreme refuge above the material modes, or limitless form. This whole cosmic manifestation is pervaded by you. Omnipresent, right? Isn't it? God is pervading everywhere. Now you see how many points came out in this one verse 38. We spoke about the 6 opulences of Krishna. He possesses knowledge in full. Now Arjuna is saying here, you are the knower of everything, and you are all that is knowable. So you see, Krishna possesses the opulence in full. That is stressed upon here in this prayer of Arjuna to Krishna, right? And he also says here, you are the knower of everything, you are the supreme refuge. So everyone must take shelter of Krishna, of God. See, I thought I just wanted to share that in relation to transcendental knowledge, because Krishna took Arjuna from step by step by step, gave him transcendental knowledge, went even further, and revealed his universal form to Arjuna. And by that stage, Arjuna had already gained so much of knowledge. See? Okay. So let's go on to right from the beginning of chapter 4 and just go briefly, and then you can share your realizations on chapter 4 after that, right? So in text 1, Krishna said to Arjuna, I instructed the signs to whom? To the sun god Vivasvan. And Vivasvan instructed the signs of Bhagavad Gita to Manu, who was the father of mankind. And then it went on to Ikshvaku and son to son to son further on. But later on, what happened to the science? It was lost. But here, the fact that Krishna is saying that he instructed this yoga to the sun god, what does it tell us? It tells us that Krishna is the oldest in creation. This is proof in itself that what? Krishna was around even before the sun, before the appearance of the sun, because this material universe, this earthly planet and all the other planets were just empty shells. They were just shells, and they were full of darkness. It needed to be populated, right? Therefore, Vishnu came down, and from him he created Brahma, he created Rudra, a form of Shiva, and then Brahma started engineering and creating the universe. Okay. Then Krishna went on to say, he says that this transcendental knowledge was passed on in cyclic succession, but what happened? The science was lost. So therefore, Arjuna, I had to come back. And I came back here in my original form to deliver this knowledge, this transcendental knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And why did Krishna do this? Do this to help us to go back home, back to Godhead. Right? Then Krishna went on to say that this Bhagavad Gita is meant for whom? It's meant for everybody. Right? But also, this science, he said, is very ancient. Right? And that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me, O Arjuna, because you are my devotee as well as my friend. So therefore, Bhagavad Gita is for whom? It is for us, for devotees. It is for those who are favorable to God consciousness. It is for those who are favorable to Krishna consciousness. Right? And he goes on further to say that the sun god, Arjuna at that point, became very confused. Arjuna at that point thought Krishna to still be an ordinary person, even though he surrendered to Krishna in chapter 2, verse 7. And he said, Krishna, please help me. I am now a soul surrendered unto you. And their relationship changed from friends to disciple and spiritual master. But still, there were some vestiges of doubts in Arjuna's mind. So this teaches us a lesson as well, right? If we have gurus, we have senior devotees, and it does not mean that if you have taken initiation, if you have taken initiation from a spiritual master, it does not mean that you are now all-knowing. You may still have and will still have doubts in your mind, but you need to approach the spiritual master in a humble way and let him clear your doubts, because that's the role of the spiritual master. So Arjuna liked that. Arjuna had a doubt. He said to Krishna, the sun god, whom you call Vivasvan, is senior in birth to you. So how am I to understand that you instructed the science of Bhagavad Gita to Vivasvan? So that was a doubt in Arjuna's mind, right? And Krishna will clear that doubt later on. And this as well proves what? If we know that Krishna was here even before the sun, before creation, that he is the oldest living entity. And Lord Brahma himself, who is the engineer of this universe, offers prayer called the Brahma Samhita. And in his prayer, he prays to Krishna and he says that you are the oldest living being. Yet you have the blooming look of a youthful personality. So absolutely attractive. Lord Brahma says, Adhyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha. That's the verse I'm talking about, right? That Krishna got such ever beautiful, blooming, youthful look, yet you are the oldest in creation, right? And then Krishna goes on in chapter text 6. Krishna goes on and he says that although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium. How? How does he appear in every millennium? In his original transcendental form. So here Krishna is confirming to us that his form, called Krishna, is original. See? Very systematically Krishna gives us, step by step. And then he goes on to say that the person who knows his transcendental nature, who knows, understands his appearance and understands his activities, such a person, when that person leaves his body, he does not take birth again. And where does he go to? The eternal abode, to the spiritual world, right? So we need to be how? We need to be, in other words, Krishna conscious, conscious of Krishna, conscious of God. We need to understand his supreme position. And if we understand his supreme position, we will not falsely identify the supreme nature of Krishna as ordinary. We will not think that Krishna was here and he was just a great personality and then Krishna left his body. Right? Such a person is faithless. So Krishna says, one who knows the transcendental nature, my transcendental appearance, and he understands that my activities are transcendental and not ordinary, such a person, upon leaving his body, does not take birth here again. Okay? Right. And then Krishna also wanted us, he said in chapter 4, said to Arjuna, a person who is free from attachment, fear, anger, and all these bad qualities, all these anarthas, if they are free from all of that and they are absorbed in me and they take refuge in me, then what happens? Such a person becomes purified in knowledge. And it has happened in the past, he says to Arjuna. Such people became purified in knowledge by following this process. And we are saying now it is very difficult for the normal human being, for me, you, and many others, to become free from anger, free from attachment, free from fear. It's a very high bar. So how do we do it? We do it how? How do we get rid of the anarthas? By following the process of Krishna, by doing devotionals, by doing what we are doing right now on a regular basis. Okay. And then he says that everyone who surrenders unto me, I reward them accordingly. So to the degree to which you surrender to Krishna, to that degree he shall reward you. All right. So let's take an example here. Right? Let's take an example of parents and children. Parents, a mother will have, say, 3, 4 children, whatever. And as the children grow, what happens? They become more independent. They don't depend so much on the mother, right? But the youngest child, what about the baby who still needs to be fed? Baby needs to be clothed. The baby needs to be bathed. The baby needs to be put to rest. What about that child? Or even a little bigger child who needs to be taken to school, needs to be taught manners, needs to be taught things. That child is very dependent on the mother or the parents, right? So isn't the parents then or the mother then going to be more inclined or more attached to that child? Because the child is depending on the mother. So the more you depend on Krishna, in other words, the more you surrender unto Krishna, the more he rewards you. That's what it is. So your big grown-up university child, or even a child who's left home and now is working, may contact you, but not very regularly. You may not even see your child on a daily basis, even on a monthly basis. That child is more independent. So you're going to give your attention more to the child who is calling out for you, right? And Srila Prabhupada says, when we chant our rounds of japa, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we should chant in such a way that it must be like a child crying out for his mother's attention. That's how we should chant japa. That's how our mood in prayer should be. And when we can surrender to that degree, Krishna says, then I reward you to that degree too. Okay. And then Krishna went on to speak about men who have worldly desire and men who want fruitive results, activities. They engage in fruitive activities. They want results quickly. They approach and pray to Krishna's devotees in the higher planetary system called demigods or the devtas. So they pray to them for quick results. Krishna sanctions it via the demigods and they get it. But what happens with that? They get trapped to this material. They get temporary success. Right? Then Krishna goes on to say that according to the 3 modes of material nature, what are the 3 modes of material nature? Goodness, passion, and ignorance. Right? So according to these 3 modes of material nature, and according to work associated in these 3 modes of nature, according to the 4 divisions of society which he created all of that. Right? That's what he says. But although he created that, he says, know, Arjuna, that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. So Krishna created all this, but he is not attached to all this. Now, what does this verse give us? Another of the 6 opulences of Krishna. We spoke about his opulence of knowledge being revealed in one of the verses earlier. Now we speak of the opulence of renunciation in this verse. Because he's unattached. He created everything, but what is he attached? He's renounced totally. So there's opulence of renunciation that's highlighted here. It's actually text 13. All right. Now, Krishna goes on and he says everyone should act only for Krishna in Krishna consciousness and devotionals and they should offer all the results to him. Do not be attached to your results. And that is called devotional. And the process of devotional service helps you transcend this material realm. Okay. Krishna encourages Arjuna. He says, abandon all attachment to the results of activities. And what do we know? That this is the goal of life, to be detached from our actions. Krishna says, do your activities, but do it as an offering unto me. Now, I just want to go a little bit further in chapter 4, where Krishna goes on to speak about the different types of yoga. Remember, he spoke about the different processes of self-realization. He spoke about yoga and the different techniques of yoga. He spoke about the breathing techniques, where some yogis try to equalize their breath, the ingoing and the outgoing, and eventually they bring it to an equilibrium state. And the purpose of them doing this exercise is to prolong their lives. And why they want to prolong their lifespan? To realize themselves, to get transcendental knowledge. That is one way. And Krishna says that is not incorrect, because it comes from the Vedas. And the Vedas come from Krishna. So it is not incorrect. Krishna gives us all these techniques, all these different ways in the Vedas. But he still says the best of all is devotional service. So you must do action, but action in Krishna. Because the senses are very difficult. And sometimes by practicing and practicing and practicing for so many years, one may not even achieve that goal of perfect yogic state. And his time may expire, and he may need to leave the body. And if he has not achieved, then what happens? Come back. So Krishna gives us a sure method, an easy method in Bhagavad Gita, which we need to follow. And Prabhupada's purpose help us very much in understanding what Krishna says. Right? So Krishna says, yes, sacrifice is very important. Goes on to say, sacrifice or austerities. They are required. They are required to transcend this material nature. And there are various types. We should all be doing some sort of austerity. But the biggest austerity is to offer everything to Krishna in devotional service and not wait for expectation of the fruits of your actions. Okay? We should always do it with the goal of pleasing Krishna. That's called love. When somebody acts on the platform of wanting to please the other person to such an extent of not even wanting anything in return, then that is called love. Anything else is called lust, because love is not conditional. When mother serves the child, it is not conditional. She serves freely. And Prabhupada says the closest that one can come to understanding love is the love that a mother has for her child. Okay, fathers, you too. But it's just that mothers have this maternal instinct, right? And can do absolutely anything for the child. That's the closest that one can come to understanding what pure love. And then Krishna goes on to say to Arjuna that sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than mere sacrifice of material possessions. And we used the example last week, or the other week, one of the weeks, where sometimes people say they're going to fast, but they fast for material reasons. So they won't eat the whole day, or they won't eat their favorite food in a whole month, or whatever type of fast they're doing, from fruits, grains, whatever. You know, sometimes people do it because they're writing exams and they want a good pass rate in the exam. So they fast for that purpose, but that purpose is material. But when you fast or do an austerity because it will be pleasing to the Lord, then such an austerity is first class. It is then that austerity is called devotional service. And then Krishna then went on to encourage Arjuna to learn the science of transcendental knowledge. How? By approaching a spiritual master. You have to approach not just a spiritual master, but a bona fide spiritual master who follows the disciplic succession. And he says the way you approach him is how? Submissively. And how? What else must you do? You must render service unto him. Because Krishna refers to these spiritual masters or these gurus as self-realized souls. And those self-realized souls, Krishna says, can impart this knowledge to you. Why? Because they have seen the truth. They are self-realized, so they've seen the truth. And because they've seen the truth, they can impart this knowledge. Therefore, you should approach submissively and serve them. Right? Then Krishna goes on to say that once you have obtained this real knowledge now, right, from the self-realized soul, you will never fall down into illusion again. Because what happens? This knowledge, what does this knowledge do? He says here, for by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are what? Part and parcel of Krishna. And if you see every living being as part and parcel of God, you will respect every living being. Isn't it? And then Krishna goes on to say that the boat of transcendental knowledge, by the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Uses very nice analogies. Uses another analogy in text 37 where he says, as a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes or reactions of material activity. So you must have this knowledge, this transcendental knowledge to burn off your material activity. Because this transcendental knowledge will make you realize and understand that whatever activities you do should not even be on the material platform. It should be on the spiritual platform. And how do we get it to be on the spiritual platform? By engaging in devotional service and offering the results to Krishna. We do it to please him, not ourselves and not our sins. And by engaging every sense of our body in pleasing Krishna or in devotional service, our senses get purified. Okay, and then we transcend in that way. And Krishna says that one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service, such a person enjoys this knowledge within himself because he's self-satisfied up. And what happens to him after that? He attains the supreme spiritual peace. But Krishna goes on to say, the ignorant and the faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. What happens to them? They just fall down. They get deeper and deeper and deeper into materialism. And they will carry on coming back to this material world. And this yuga that we are living in, this current age called Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, it's already so full of sinful activities, and it only gets worse. It is predicted in scripture, it is predicted in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that by the end of Kali Yuga, as Kali Yuga gets closer to the end, things will be so bad that, I'll just give you an example. It's very scary, but it is the truth. It is predicted that there will be no food left. Fruits, trees will bear fruits that will have only the seeds and the skin. It will not have any of that flesh in between. There will be such scarcity of food grains and milk products and fruits that people will go down to the level of cannibalism. They will have children only to eat. Srimad Bhagavatam predicts all of this. It's predicted also that taxes will rise to such a ridiculous amount that it will get to a stage where people will overthrow the government. People will just refuse to pay taxes anymore. We can see, we can relate to this, how much of taxes we pay. Look at the price of fuel. It just keeps on going up and up and up. So all these predictions are coming true. But Krishna, so knowing all of this, why would we want to come back here? Is the suffering that we have at this point in time not enough? Isn't it enough? When is enough going to be enough? So if we don't try and make this lifetime our last lifetime, we're going to come back and back and back. And who knows? We're probably going to be around at that, the most darkest point of Kali Yuga, and go through even more suffering than we think we're going through now. So that's something to think about. And then Krishna says in conclusion here of chapter 4, he says, one who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, very importantly, and whose doubts have been destroyed by what? Whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge. He is actually situated in the self. So in other words, he is situated in himself. He realizes himself as the jiva, as the spark of the super soul. And thus, that such a person, he says, is not bound by the reactions of. And he closes the chapter, and I will read this verse out, closes the chapter by saying, therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. And when Krishna says this, oh dear, Arjuna gets even more confused. So in other words, who gets confused? Not Arjuna, us. Now Krishna says that knowledge is really nice. Knowledge is the best thing to have. What knowledge? Transcendental knowledge. And then Krishna says, okay, Arjuna, listen, be sure to have this knowledge, which is a weapon that will slash out ignorance. It's the best thing to have transcendental knowledge. It's the best type of yoga. What yoga it's called? Buddhi yoga. That means knowledge. Yoga in knowledge. He says that. And the next breath, he tells Arjuna, armed with the yoga, oh Bharata, oh Arjuna, stand up and fight. Now in one breath, he's saying, have that yoga of buddhi or knowledge. The next breath, he's saying, engage yourself in bhakti yoga. Engage yourself in karma yoga rather. So you must stand up in action now. Fight. So Arjuna is very confused. We are very confused. Now let's go on to the next chapter and see how it unfolds and see what Krishna actually means by this. So we will go on, before we go on to the first verse in chapter 5, where Srila Prabhupada very nicely clears this doubt and elaborates on what Krishna says. Let us take some realizations. So I'm going to open up the chat and we can all share what we thought about chapter 4, whatever you want. Okay, so Paramatma Prabhu, we'll start with you.
Hi, Maji. Now, Maji, I was just thinking that devotional service is mentioned throughout the Bhagavad Gita, and it's something we need to take advantage of. And as you said, we never know when our time is going to come. You mentioned your uncle, left his body.
Yes.
So we need to take advantage, while we have the opportunity. And we fortunately get a lot of association with very advanced devotees as well. So we must take advantage of that.
Yes.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Shalina Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I think chapter 4 nicely describes, the Lord describes the way to receive transcendental knowledge. And I think that's something important for us to take away, that we actually need to approach a spiritual master and learn in a submissive manner. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, very important. Thank you. Bharati and Riyaz, anything you want to contribute? Share.
I think there was so much to take in today. There's so much to reflect on.
Yeah.
So there were a few things that came to mind, but maybe towards the end I'll give something like that.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Veronica Mataji.
Hare Krishna. I share your sentiments about today's departure of Rishi Kaka. It's you only realize when it hits home that the day will come. All of us will have to go one day. And are we really prepared? Did we prepare enough for that when the final curtain falls? You wonder and you sit back and think, have I prepared enough? And our Gita, Krishna teaches us so much. As you said, from chapter 1, it takes us right through to the last chapter, and how much have we absorbed? Did we ever learn? It's like it's more like whatever we learned and whatever we are learning, we know we need to put it into action one day when the final curtain falls. Hare Krishna.
Oh, very deep. Thank you. Dean Prabhu?
Yeah, I've been having a day full of realizations today because I spent most of the day at the new Jagannath Puri temple in Phoenix. Yeah, so it was, I was very fortunate. For some reason, the Prabhu put the garland that was used for the entire week, for Ramayana week, on Lord Jagannath on me.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that was really quite an experience. I had never experienced anything like that before. Yeah. So anyway,
Wonderful.
Sorry.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, no, it was really quite wonderful. And then, so when I was thinking about this, about listening very carefully to everything that you were saying and all that we went through in chapter 4, it made me realize that, what you are saying about the Bhagavatam and how it sees the end of Kali Yuga, we can actually see it already happening in this current life that we are living. We can already see the amount of suffering and people, the ignorance is that all of us, even I was part of that ignorance. And I think through Krishna's blessings, I still got a long way to go to become Krishna conscious enough so that I can realize Krishna properly, So I realize I got a long way to go. But at least you realize that you don't want to be born back here. You don't want to be back in this material life. You want to, we want to go back to Brahmaloka, to Krishna himself. Then you can be free of all of these miseries. Because really, we don't want to come back and relive this, go with the same suffering over and over again. So I think that was a major realization for me.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dean Prabhu. So I shall read out Sadhika Mataji's message here in the chat box. It says, Hare Krishna Mataji, I realize that devotional service is very important. So yes, this comes out quite clearly in this chapter as well. Thank you, Sadhika Mataji. Kadruta Mataji?
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. I realize that we are very fortunate because we are devotees of the Lord, and the Lord was and is our first spiritual master. Through Arjuna, we have all instruction from him how to conduct our lives to be successful in this life and in the next one. And just we have to do to follow his instruction. And as he says somewhere apart in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 9, verse 11, I think his devotees never perishes. And small advance we have now will continue in the next life, or if we are fortunate, maybe we arrive in Vaikuntha planets. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Kadruta Mataji. Very nice, where you pointed out that Krishna says that his devotees never perish. Very important, all of us to remember that. So become a devotee. And Krishna will take care of you. Okay, Rasavati Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
It's like I've come to realize that sometimes we say that we must detach ourselves from things and attach to Krishna. And it's a bit difficult if you have children that are dependent on you, and it takes a longer time for us to detach from family life. And also that, as you were talking about your uncle, I am trying to prepare myself, for where I'll have to be strong for my son-in-law and his and my grandchild, because my daughter is in her last stages. Now, how do we try to explain something like this to them that the mom is my daughter, like you can say, is going to leave the body. It's the soul, and her body is still going to be here. We must, like normally we say, pray for the soul, that the soul advances. It is a bit hard to explain to somebody who is not in Krishna conscious.
No, it is.
Yeah.
How old
so
are the grandchildren, Mataji?
No,
Are they-
she's just got one daughter, and her daughter is 27 years old.
Okay, so she's
Yeah.
of an understanding age. So
Yeah.
when people don't want to or are not in Krishna consciousness or whatever, God consciousness, then the best method for such people is to just give them Krishna Prasad.
Thanks, Mataji.
As much as possible. As much
Yes,
as possible.
I've been doing that when I just went to the temple on Thursday, and I got some maha. I took it to her yesterday, and then I'm going to go back home to now. I'm in Devon for the past week or so, so
Right.
I need to go back home.
So also like, Krishna Prasadam, definitely. And if the person is not unfavorable, it's best to play a lot of kirtan around the person, because chanting and kirtan is a transcendental sound vibration.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that purifies your sense of hearing. And when that transcendental sound vibration enters into the ear, it's straight into the heart. And we know that Krishna is seated in the heart, right?
Yeah,
we know Krishna is seated in the heart.
I sent some mantras, the Maha Mantra to her.
Yes, that's the best.
Yeah, the Brahma Samhita.
The Sadhana Kirtan.
Yes. Thanks, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. And I'm very sorry to hear about your son.
Well, I have to even prepare myself. I'm also in the second stages of cancer. So, we accept it. We accept it, but like, it is difficult for the next person to accept something like that.
It is.
Like we can say, no, we are old now. We can, leave our body. But I also told them, my children, that if I ever have to come to that stage, they must please have the doctor to remove the pacemaker. And once the pacemaker is removed, I won't be able to live for long. So, I'll be released quickly. So it's just something that we have to live with.
I'd like to chat to you a little bit more, maybe offline.
Okay,
if you would like to, then we can do that.
I'd like to.
But I mean, you're a devotee and you've got the right spirit and you are in the right path. And I'm sure your practice, I know for sure your practice will definitely assist your family members as well. Krishna is always. Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Rasavati Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Ivashni Mataji, you want to say anything or post anything in the chat box? You're welcome. Okay, so that brings us to the close of chapter 4. Now, chapter 5, I'm just going to read the first verse because we don't have too much time. And I'd like to just at least start chapter 5. Right, so we'll read the first verse. And I'm going to share my screen. Oh, I don't seem to be able to share today for some reason. Paramatma Prabhu. Okay, there we go. It's on now. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Arjuna Uvacha. Sanyasam karmanam Krishna, punaryogam cha samshashi, yashtreya etayor ekam, tanme bruhi sunischitam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again, you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? You see how Arjuna now, after Krishna closed on that last verse, Arjuna is now confused. Because Krishna says something and then he tells him stand up and fight. So in other words, work, action, do action, work in devotion. Arjuna wants to know which is better. So Prabhupada, nicely in his purport, clarifies this for us. So let's read his purport. In the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that work in devotional service is better than dry mental speculation. Devotional service is easier than the latter because being transcendental in nature, it frees one from reaction. In the 2nd chapter, preliminary knowledge of the soul and its entanglement in the material body were explained. How to get out of this material engagement by Buddhi Yoga or devotional service was also explained therein. In the 3rd chapter, it was explained that a person who is situated on the platform of knowledge no longer has any duties to perform. And in the 4th chapter, the one we just read, right? The Lord told Arjuna that all kinds of sacrificial work culminate in knowledge. However, at the end of the 4th chapter, the Lord advised Arjuna to wake up and fight, being situated in perfect knowledge. Therefore, by simultaneously stressing the importance of both work in devotion and inaction in knowledge, Krishna has perplexed Arjuna and confused his determination. Arjuna understands that renunciation in work involves cessation of all kinds of work formed as sense activities. But if one performs work in devotional service, then how is work stopped? In other words, he thinks that sannyas or renunciation in knowledge should be altogether free from all kinds of activity because work and renunciation appear to him to be incompatible. He appears to not to have understood that work in full knowledge is non-reactive and is therefore the same as inaction. He inquires, therefore, whether he should cease work altogether or work with full knowledge. Okay. So Prabhupada says to us in the end, he tells us exactly what Arjuna is feeling. He appears to not have understood it, right? So now Arjuna's inquiry is this. He wants to know whether he should cease work, give up work altogether, or work with full knowledge. This is his question to Krishna. And then Krishna will explain further in the coming verses. So we shall have to stop here, dear devotees. And I am going to now stop the recording so that we can share more realizations and then conclude for now. Thank you very much for joining. Hare Krishna.